Hey, in this video I'll be explaining the purpose of a turbocharger. Coming up.
This is a Chucky Beat production.
Turbochargers are great because... Just kidding, except the cool noises and blow-off sounds that turbos make, they're one of a hell piece of engineering meant to help us get a little more from the same engines that we used to have 20 years ago. The purpose of a turbocharger is to reuse the exhaust gases to move a compressor so we can force more air into the cylinder to increase engine power. Before we get into a breakdown of the process, we initially need to understand how things work. So we want to increase power and torque. Okay, to achieve that we need to burn more fuel. And here are the options. First option, we increase engine size. Second option, we increase the compression ratio, but this is limited, especially in gasoline engines. If we increase the compression ratio too much in a gasoline engine, we will experience engine knocking or auto-ignition. This happens generally if the compression ratio exceeds 12.5 or 13. And the third option is to turbocharge or supercharge the engine. As you would imagine, doing all the things mentioned above will give us the best performance. Now let's get into the turbo stuff. So here's the breakdown of the process of turbocharging. So the exhaust gases go into the turbocharger and the other side of the turbo, which is the compressor, will force more air into the cylinder. Before we actually get the pressurized exhaust gases at the beginning, we will experience a delay, which is also called turbo lag. And it's normal to be that way. Engines with more than one turbochargers or turbochargers with advanced technology which uses twin scroll have a reduced turbo lag. But it exists and it's normal to be that way. More air means more oxygen. More oxygen means that we can burn more fuel. More fuel burnt per cycle means that we increase power and torque dramatically. The optimum air-fuel ratio is around 14:1, or in other words, 14 parts of air and 1 part of fuel. In engineering, the exact amount of air required to burn a specific quantity of fuel is called stoichiometric combustion. This is also equivalent to having a coefficient which is called lambda equivalent to 1. In the real world, lambda is 1.05 or 1.1. So we have slightly more air necessary to burn the fuel. We don't want to have any unburnt fuel, so in order to avoid that, we give the engine some more air. By turbocharging the engine, we get more power and more torque without sacrificing reliability too much. I mean, we do, but it's totally manageable. Temperatures and pressures inside the cylinder increase exponentially. This means that engine wear will also increase. To have a stronger and more reliable engine, we need to use stronger alloys for the camshafts, for the crankshaft, for the cylinder head, for the pistons, for the engine block, for the valves, and for the connecting rods. If you would add a turbocharger to a naturally aspirated engine without modifying internals, it will collapse pretty soon. Air is denser when it's colder, or in other words, the space between the molecules is smaller when it's colder. So to get the best performance out of a turbocharger, we need to have fresh, cold air. To do that, we need an intercooler. More than 95% of turbocharged engines also have an intercooler, or even more than one. Older models, I've actually driven one, with no intercoolers have great performance when it was cold outside and weak performance when outside they were like 35 degrees Celsius. So an intercooler really helps. Boost comes after around 1500 RPM or even at over 2000 RPM. As you would imagine, the maximum pressure and boost that you will get from a turbocharger is when you full throttle the acceleration pedal. When we are in full boost from the turbocharger and we release the acceleration pedal, we cut off the fuel. So the pressure from the turbocharger won't go into the engine, it will go out through a valve which is called wastegate. That's when you hear those awesome turbo sounds. Turbocharged engines can be tuned to huge amounts of power. There are literally engines with 2 liters capacity with a huge turbocharger that have over 1000 horsepower. Well, they aren't reliable, but it's possible. You can't obtain 1000 horsepower from a 2-liter naturally aspirated engine. Whatever you do to it, it's impossible. With a turbocharger, it's possible, but you will destroy the engine pretty soon. Not only that turbochargers increase performance, but they also increase fuel efficiency. They're more efficient than naturally aspirated engines, they're also more efficient than supercharged engines. And that's it. That's why turbochargers are being used nowadays. To increase power, to reduce consumption, and to design smaller engines for the average driver. While I don't agree with small inline-3 turbocharged engines with over 100 horsepower, they're totally drivable. They're pretty okay for an average driver who needs to go from A to B, from work to home and back. That's why manufacturers use these engines. They need to reduce the cost of production, so they use less materials, smaller engine, they turbocharge them, they increase efficiency, and they sell it for a smaller price. So they serve us well. For car fanatics like me, I wouldn't bother buying a turbocharged engine unless it has at least 200 horsepower. I don't mind having a V8 twin turbo engine, but a 1 liter inline 3? No thanks. I still prefer having a naturally aspirated one. If you have anything else to add, please feel free to write down in the comment section below. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.